There is a law of history that is as immutable as gravity. An empire is only as strong as its ability to pay its soldiers. As we move through 2026, the United States is approaching a fiscal threshold that has broken every superpower that came before it. The total national security budget, when you factor in the Pentagon, intelligence agencies, and the nuclear arsenal, is now hitting a staggering $1.5 trillion. It is a number so vast that it exceeds the total GDP of most industrialized nations. Welcome to Redline History. Today, we are following the money. We are going to look under the hood of the imperial engine to see how a nation pays for a military that spans the globe. We will trace the evolution of war finance from the silver mines of Rome to the modern American reality, where the dollar is backed not by gold, but by the control of global energy. To understand why the $1.5 trillion budget of 2026 is a tipping point, we must first look at the original architects of professional warfare, the Romans. The Roman Empire did not have a central bank or a printing press. For centuries, Rome paid its legions through a simple, brutal cycle: conquest and loot. When a new province was taken, the gold and the grain flowed back to the capital. This was predatory finance. But by the 2nd century, the expansion stopped. The cost of defending the territory began to exceed the profit of holding it. To keep the army from revolting, the emperors turned to a tactic that modern governments would find familiar. They debased the currency. In the year 200, the Roman silver coin, the denarius, was nearly pure silver. By the year 270, it was essentially a copper coin dipped in silver. This was the birth of inflation. The soldiers realized their pay was becoming worthless. The farmers refused to sell grain for junk coins, and the Roman military machine began to eat itself from the inside. Rome didn't fall because it was conquered. It fell because it could no longer pay for the guards at the gate. The lesson was clear. If you want to maintain a global military, you cannot rely on plunder. You must build a system where the world's economy is literally designed to fund your defense. It took 1,500 years for another power to master this. That power was Britain. In the 19th century, the British Empire discovered a secret weapon more powerful than the cannons on their ships: the credit empire. By creating a permanent national debt, Britain could borrow massive sums to build the Royal Navy, knowing that the profits of global trade would pay the interest. The pound sterling became the world's reserve currency. If you wanted to trade sugar or tea, you did it in pounds. This gave London an invisible tax on every transaction on the planet. But like Rome, Britain hit a limit. After 2 world wars, Britain was the most indebted nation in history. The crown was handed to the only nation left standing with a functioning factory and a full treasury: the United States. For the first 25 years of the American century, the system was simple. The dollar was as good as gold. But by 1971, the cost of the Cold War and massive social programs made that promise impossible to keep. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon did the unthinkable. He closed the gold window. He severed the link between the dollar and reality. For a moment, the American empire was staring into the same abyss that consumed Rome. The dollar began to slide, and inflation began to roar. And that is when the US found its new gold. It wasn't found in a mine, it was found in the deserts of the Middle East. In 1974, the United States struck a deal that has funded every aircraft carrier and every overseas base for the last 50 years. This was the Saudi-American Agreement. The terms were blunt. The US would provide total military protection for the House of Saud. In exchange, Saudi Arabia would ensure that every drop of oil they sold was priced exclusively in US dollars. This created an artificial global demand for the dollar. If you were Japan, Germany, or China, and you wanted to keep your lights on, you had to buy dollars first to buy oil second. This is the petrodollar system. It allows the United States to run massive deficits, borrowing trillions from the rest of the world at low interest rates. As long as oil is priced in dollars, the dollar is the indispensable oxygen of the global economy. But as we enter 2026, that oxygen is running thin. The projection of a $1.5 trillion security budget isn't just about inflation. It's about the fact that the petrodollar system is currently undergoing a managed collapse. Throughout 2025, we saw the unthinkable. Saudi Arabia began accepting Chinese yuan for oil. The exclusive link to the dollar has been breached. Simultaneously, the BRICS nations are developing a gold-backed trade currency designed to bypass the US financial system entirely. To the administration in 2026, this is a declaration of economic war. This explains the sudden shift toward resource realism. If the US can no longer rely on the world to hold dollars out of necessity, it must secure the resources the world needs by force. This is the hidden logic behind the moves on Greenland's minerals, Venezuela's heavy crude, and Mexico's lithium. Before we look at the imperial overstretch, the moment where the cost of the military exceeds the value of the protection it provides, we need to hear from you. In a world where the dollar is losing its grip, should the US scale back its global footprint or double down on military dominance? Drop your comment below. We read every perspective. And if you want to understand the economic gears of history, hit the like button and subscribe to Redline History. We don't just track the news, we track the power. We are now approaching what historians call the fiscal Rubicon. The $1.5 trillion security budget is currently funded by a combination of debt and what economists call seigniorage, the ability of the US to print money that the rest of the world is forced to use. But as the world fragments into regional trade blocs, that free lunch is ending. If the US has to start paying for its military using real wealth rather than borrowed credit, the American standard of living will have to change. This is the truth that no politician wants to discuss. You cannot have a global empire and a domestic welfare state on a shrinking tax base. The strategy for 2026 is energy dominance. By becoming the world's primary exporter of natural gas and securing the lithium triangle in the Americas, the US is trying to replace the petrodollar with the electrodollar. They are moving the frontier from the oil fields of the Persian Gulf to the mineral mines of the Western Hemisphere. The $1.5 trillion being spent this year is an investment in that transition. It is the cost of building a fortress around the resources of the future. History shows us that empires don't usually die in a single battle. They die in the accounting office. Rome died when it couldn't pay its soldiers in silver. Britain died when it couldn't pay its lenders in gold. The United States is currently betting that it can rewrite that ending. It is betting that as long as it has the most sophisticated weapons and the most critical resources, the world will have no choice but to keep funding the $1.5 trillion bill. But as we've seen throughout Redline history, every system has a breaking point. In the 20th century, we fought for the oil in the sand. In the 21st century, we are fighting for the minerals in the ice and the lithium in the mountains. The budget is the battlefield, and the dollar is the ammunition. The question is no longer if the system will change, but who will be left standing when the music stops. The Arctic is the new frontier. The Americas are the new fortress. And the red line of American power is being redrawn on a balance sheet. Thanks for watching Redline History. If you want to see the world for what it actually is, a high-stakes game of geography and finance, make sure you've subscribed and hit the bell icon. We'll see you at the next border.